Hello Patriots, I'm at Restored Republic via AGCR update for Thursday, March 24th by Judy Byington. You are ready, the storm is upon us. Watch, listen, and share. April, Moab, Q, the mother of all bombs. Boom, 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 boom. A week to remember, dark to light, blackout necessary, the countdown has started, JFK Jr. Look for events, not dates. Global cyber attack is inevitable. A hard drive from hell, authenticated by the New York Times, reveals 30 years of the Biden crime family selling Joe's office for millions in bribes. Hunter says 50% for Joe Biden, the boss of the Biden crime family. History will record this as America's worst scandal so far, Rudy Giuliani. Faith in humanity. Judy note, the Vatican Crown and U.S. Inc., which have controlled and used U.S. taxpayer dollars since the early 1900s, created the fiat U.S. dollar and were now broke. On Sunday, March 20th, the fiat U.S. dollar was officially dead, according to Charlie Ward, head of the Global Currency Reset Transition Team. Over 3 billion people across the earth just went into the new gold-backed financial system that the White Hats put in place according to the Storm Rider. China, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, and many other countries were now trading on the gold-backed system. It only took 72 hours for the new system to be up, running, and trading 12 countries in an instant. The effect of half of 7 billion people leaving the deep state central banking system meant that the collapse of a world cabal-owned markets was imminent. There was panic in DC, Europe, UN, NATO, world elites, big pharma, big tech, and the mainstream media, who still refused to report that on Monday, March 21st, a new gold asset-backed quantum financial system officially began across the globe. The mainstream media didn't even report that the military was running our country and that Biden was an imposter committing treason, trying to take over this country for the globalists. So the mainstream media, in my opinion, has committed treason. They have no credibility, and I would not watch them. And I'm hoping they will be arrested, every single one of them. Global Currency Reset. 𝐶𝐾𝐘 Farm claims prosperity packages, groups out of Reno, and bondholders were all in the process of being paid out with liquidity this week, according to Bruce and Mark Z. The Rodriguez and St. Germain trusts that fund NESARA was thought to have been paid out overnight, Tuesday night into Wednesday, March 23rd, according to Bruce. Tier 4B, the internet group, notification could come at any time dependent upon events, not dates. The Federal Reserve note, USD will complete by the end of March and will be phased out by September 2022. Well, according to several sources, the new gold asset-backed US note would be available to the general public around the first part of April. Texas Snake on Thursday, March 24th. We should be on real-time banking. Mark Z, we all will be offered the same rates at the redemption centers. There will be no negotiating as our special rates are covered in a treaty. On Monday, March 21st, redemption center personnel began working full-time and held their final in-house meeting Tuesday morning, March 22nd. The red letter date that every country's new gold asset-backed currency rates were effective, according to Putin. U.S. Inc. was bankrupted by the Chinese Communist Party and Saudi Arabia, according to Charlie Ward. And NESARA were coming, and it would be like this worldwide, reduced hours for everyone. So there's a link here to an article in the UK where they're trying a 4-day working week. Real News Headlines, Secrets for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. The death of Queen Elizabeth has been kept quiet for nearly 2 years. Ukrainian anti-war activists have been blocking trucks at the Polish-Belarus border for 2 weeks so far. Ukrainian people have suffered under the control of a deep state-supported Nazi regime. Many missing global and political elites, including Biden, Obama, and Hillary, have already been arrested, tried, and hung after military tribunals for their crimes against humanity. And my guess is what we're seeing are actors or clones or, whatever, that have been out by the cabal, put out by the cabal, still playing their parts, and I believe the military telling us that the clones even have been taken in, arrested, and they're under white hat control. 3 different actors, including Jim Carrey, have been playing Biden at his fake inauguration, at a Hollywood Castle Rock White House movie set, and in another White House in Georgia. Hunter Biden's laptop revealed 30 years of Biden selling his office for millions in bribes. Washington, D.C. has been a ghost town. Federal offices closed since January 20th, 2021. And Chinese Communist Party elites' homes in 22 provinces were empty. All of which news has been covered up by the deep state-owned mainstream media, who therefore appear to have committed their own crimes against humanity. They're mostly owned by Mossad and controlled by Mossad and the cabal. And remember the Balfour Declaration, the globalists like the Rothschilds basically took over Israel and created the State of Israel. And these journalists all have dual citizenship with Israel. And that's not a coincidence. They have been controlling the Western media this whole time. It's checkmate time in Q's Great Awakening world. Cyber attack is inevitable. Plan B is in action. A global cyber attack aimed at destroying key internet infrastructure is inevitable. The perfect scapegoat for the currently collapsing economy and rising inflation. It is important to consider the technocracy's war against humanity from the point of view of the general battle plan. No military campaign is carried out by a single attack. So the technocracy's war with humanity should be considered as a series of strategically planned waves aimed at destroying enemy strongholds. When cyber attacks disable key infrastructures, causing panic and fear around the world, the elite will enlist the support of things like cyber identification systems. And even worse, it will lead to an international reaction similar to the Patriot Act after September 11th. But as soon as this new system is implemented and people realize that they've been lured into a digital gulag from which there is no way out, they will howl. Global food, fuel, and goods shortages. Fertilizer prices soar, leaving farmers struggling with cost of production. So that's another factor that's going to go into the food, fuel, and goods shortages, because fertilizer is a necessity for growing food. World Economic Forum, more people around the world will starve. High fuel prices and the conflict in Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine are also major producers and suppliers of fertilizers and raw materials for their production. That's coming from the WEF. Existing logistical problems with the transportation of grain and food are likely to worsen. Now, if the deep state goes through with this cyber polygon shut down the internet plan, you know that the whole global food supply and chain, that brings goods and things all around the world, that's going to come to a halt because everything is tied into the internet. So that's a weakness that we have right now. Disruptions in work will put additional pressure on this year's harvest and lead to an increase in food prices, which we're already seeing at the grocery store. If you go to the grocery store, it's you're seeing food prices skyrocketing. Toyota, Volvo cut production for same reasons with differing causes. And there's a link there to an article. Cuba says fuel shortages due to spike in demand, troubles at power plant. So they're having issues in Cuba. Rare earths miner says Nolan's project separation plant crucial to supply chain diversity. And they're killing us softly and the FDA approves it. Carcinogenic chemical benzene found in hundreds of U.S. personal care products. That's scary. Independent lab found the chemical in more than a quarter of items it tested, sometimes at levels considered life-threatening. And that's from The Guardian. I mean, you can imagine things that you use every day and it has benzene in it. Toxic benzene has been found in antiperspirants, shampoos, sunscreens, hand sanitizers, and other products. And you know it's on purpose. You know why the cancer rate, some people get cancer and they don't even know where it came from, like they're so healthy. Well, hidden in our daily life, in the use of these products, we're getting some carcinogenic benzene. Here's some examples. The lab Vallisure last year detected benzene in hand sanitizers, sunscreens, deodorant, dry shampoos, conditioners, antiperspirants, deodorants, body sprays, antifungal treatments. The contamination has been most frequently detected in aerosol or spray products, some at levels the Food and Drug Administration characterized as life-threatening. Contamination is widespread, and it's probably in more products than have not yet been tested. Benzene really shouldn't be there at all, he said. What we're seeing is a fundamental problem in the manufacturing of a lot of consumer products. To date, Vallisure has tested 662 items and found the chemical in 180, or 27% of the products. Procter & Gamble, Bayer, CVS, and Johnson & Johnson have issued voluntary recalls for widely distributed brands including Brute, Sure, Pantene, Herbal Essence, Old Spice, Secret, Tenactin, Lotrimin, Coppertone, Neutrogena, and Aveeno. Among the recalled hand sanitizer brands are Art Naturals, Best Brands, and Natural Wonders. So you can go through and read the rest of the article if you'd like, but those are just some of the different items that contain benzene. And who knows, I mean, it could be in our drinking water, you know, and they're not telling us. The microchip shortage is more than you can fathom. Car companies, phone companies, computer, smart TVs, smart appliances, government weapons systems, productions are all coming to a standstill. Cargo ships across the world are halting. Millions of companies are canceling orders because of chip shortages and cannot finish production. They must cancel the next projects and cease production. Layoffs begin. Global financial crisis. China developer CASA says earnings results delayed due to lockdowns. Shares slide on the NASDAQ. There's a link to an article. Thailand has issued new rules that prohibit the use of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a means to pay for goods and services. US dollar moves back below 100 rubles on Moscow Stock Exchange. Goldman Sachs admits that the oil trade between Saudi Arabia and China signals the erosion of the reserve status of the dollar, after a recent report by the Wall Street Journal that Saudi Arabia is considering setting the price of some of its oil sold to China in yuan. The question of the status of the dollar as a global reserve currency has again become a primary issue for many long-term investors. Yes, the dollar is not going to be what it once was. Mortgage rates are surging. And Lloyd's, Halifax, and Bank of Scotland are shutting down 60 branches. Remember, these banks have to become compliant with having enough gold to back up what their reserves are. So some of these banks won't make it. Inside the storm, China's Evergrande defaults on $82.5 million in interest that is part of the larger $500 billion debt, mostly real estate. That is 30% of China's GDP. So we keep hearing about this China's Evergrande, and it just never seems to go away, but it's dragging their economy down for sure. China will then default. S&P just dumped the Chinese property giant into default, and world economics will be shaken. Rockefeller's Rothschild's banks in China connected to world banks. GPMB world money laundering scam. So if something happens with the Chinese markets and they collapse, because we were so tied up globally with other countries like China, it's going to have a ripple effect on every market. The $500 billion Chinese default fallout is 10 times worse in trading and banking numbers. Elites and brokers, world trading corporations, will steal more money to cover their debts. They don't want to lose or use their own money, so they steal honest investors and create inflation, a bubble, and then bet against the system and help bring down the market by first busting the bubble and then stealing homes and assets from hardworking families. So be aware of a lot of scams out there right now. I'm seeing scams with Ukraine, give money for Ukraine. I don't think the money goes to the Ukrainian people. I don't trust that one bit. I see that there are scams even within some of these political parties like the GOP, asking for money. Does the money go where it's supposed to go? I would be very leery at this point, and question some of these organizations asking for money, because we know that the globalist elites have no money and they're desperate. This leads to market collapse like in 2008. Then they create wars because wars mean money to them by financing both sides of the war. The CCP, Rothschild, Rockefeller's deep state want Taiwan's $759 trillion GDP and control of the microchip companies to control the world. When Ukraine falls, the world banking elites, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Khazarian mafia, CIA, central banking system will take a hit that can bring them down. Hundreds of trillions lost in hours, days, weeks, months. Biden crime. In this video, Biden boasts that he was blackmailing Ukrainian President Poroshenko by refusing a $1 billion loan. We've all heard this video, I'm sure. In order to receive a financial tranche, Poroshenko had to dismiss Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin, who was investigating Burisma, a company whose board member was Hunter Biden, with no experience whatsoever in the energy sector. Just to add that in there. Hunter Biden's MacBook Pro was found in October 2020 after he left it at a repair shop in Wilmington, Delaware, in April 2019 and did not return for it. After publishing some of the files, the New York Times questioned their origin and linked them to Russian disinformation. Last Wednesday, the newspaper changed its point of view in an article with a link to the files, which, as they confirmed, were confirmed by people familiar with them. In March last year, the Daily Mail confirmed the authenticity of the laptop, becoming the first and only news organization to publicly verify its contents using expert analysis. The Daily Mail also reports that the Washington Post had a copy of the laptop's hard drive for more than 6 months, but did not admit it and did not report it. There again, mainstream media like the Washington Post committing treason, because that is treason when you withhold information that could have swayed an election, where secrets were being, bought by foreign entities. And I think it's treason, and I hope the mainstream media pays. I really do. because I see them as one of our biggest enemies. I know they're part of the cabal, most of them, but they have played a huge part in brainwashing people, keeping people brainwashed still to this day. And until they go away, until they're gone, I don't see how people are going to wake up to the truth and know what's going on. A photo from Hunter's hard drive shows a tattoo on his back. It's the Finger Lakes, a system of lakes in the northern part of New York. It's a favorite vacation spot for the chosen ones. There are many underground tunnels under the lakes. People often disappear here. Remember, there's also submarine entrances in some of those lakes. And I've talked about this before. There are submarine tunnels all underneath the continent. And some run through the Finger Lakes area. They run through the Great Lakes. So, you know, if you wonder how they're doing it, that's how they're doing it. The laptop had intel on all the deep state presidents, prime ministers, and elites. Boy, I bet the people at that shop were like, whoa, look what we found. From oil companies to world banks to major media outlets to Bill Gates, including Ukraine infiltration by the Democratic National Committee, and around the world, corruption connected to HRC, Obama, and Biden. Sounds like that laptop is like a keystone to all of the corruption and crime and everything, tying everything together. Thank you, Hunter Biden, for putting that together for everybody. Okay, war in Ukraine. CIA-operated Ukrainian illegal prison torture camp exposed after 8 years. And there's a BitChute video to that. The Times, Ukraine is running out of weapons and ammunition. Truth bomb from Russian athlete Mariana Nemova. And I had this video yesterday where she spoke about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his spreading of propaganda. See now the importance of the first Romanov wedding in Russia in over a century. The flip, Russia is not the enemy. The Bolsheviks, Khazarian Zionists are the ones who have controlled Big Pharma, insurance companies, Big Tech, and MSM, who are the government of Israel that the Rothschilds UK royals set up. Bolshevik Khazarians, Israel is last. Why? Balfour Declaration. That's why. The Balfour Declaration, basically the Rothschilds formed Israel as a cabal state, and that is why it is last. Ukraine is an essential place for the Rothschilds banking cabal. Ukraine falls, and it will. It is the end of the New World Order. Ukraine belongs to the Soviets, not the EU, UK, Khazarian Zionist banking cabal. And the Ukraine, the symbol for the Ukraine on its flag resembles the sigil of Satan, by the way. And it has deep ties to Nazis. Turov announced the Tribunal for Crimes in Ukraine. State Duma Deputy Artyoma Turov stated about the need to create a military tribunal that would investigate cases of using civilians as a human shield. The deputy himself was able to personally hear about examples of the use of such tactics by neo-Nazis. They're not neo, they're Nazis, from people who are now being evacuated from Mariupol. Of course, it is assumed that a specially created commission will also collect materials on other war crimes of the Kiev regime. So all of these people supporting Ukraine are supporting Nazis. And I've shown you a little bit about what these Nazis do. They hide out in schools and places where if Russia was to go after them, there would be civilians that would be killed. They're also tying civilians up to trees and poles with shrink wrap or something like that, and beating them. These Nazis are evil. And I don't blame Russia one bit for going in there and getting rid of them. They're freeing the Ukrainian people from this Nazi-ridden regime. Canadian writer and activist Yves Engler accused the Canadian government and Foreign Minister Melanie Joly of escalating the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, as well as increasing the risk of its escalating into a global confrontation. Well, when these countries are sending missiles and sending military equipment and stuff to Poland that's supposed to go to Ukraine, they're basically arming the Nazis. So yeah, that's a problem. Graphic Nazi Azov battalion put someone on a cross and burned them. And that's probably those kinds of things happening everywhere in Ukraine. These Nazis are evil. The real news for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022. In the end of this near-death of civilization event, the tables will be turned. It's time for JFK awakening. He's coming back strong and he is alive. That will be really nice to see him come back. Whiplash 347. So how does this play out? Russia takes Ukraine plus other Soviet states. NATO tries to come in, Article 5. Turkey flips against NATO. China takes Taiwan. North Korea will play their part. Koreas will merge. USA attacks Iran. United Nations under Russian control for 1 month, 30 days intervenes, only 28 days in February. Iran and the US turn on the UN. Then they all band together and attack England and Israel. That's why Israel's last, because of the Balfour Declaration and the connection to the cabal with the Rothschilds. Rothschilds' reversal of Act of 1871 of England, Balfour Declaration 1917. And here's a link, another link to Hunter Biden's laptop exposed. I believe that there's footage of him and one of the Obama girls doing cocaine and stuff. Crazy. Rothschild reveals crucial role his ancestors played in the Balfour Declaration and creation of Israel. And so that's why, again, Rothschild being enemy of us, the cabal, he's the part of the cabal, and he was instrumental in the Balfour Declaration, forming Israel. Russian special forces wear the Punisher symbol, Z, on their helmets. It is one of the most important symbols of Q, which announces that an operation is underway targeting criminals belonging to the international deep state. The Russian military in Ukraine wears this symbol because it sends the same message. Trump and Putin have never stopped working together to prevent the completion of the Great Reset for Afghanistan. Q told us that only 20% of the operation will be visible and the other 80% will be covert. And that's basically what we're seeing. Many people who connected to Epstein, HRC, Bill Gates, and used the underground tunnel systems in New York City were being exposed. Oh yeah. I think a list was accidentally on purpose released of these people. New York City's elite were in a tizzy after the Justice Department inadvertently published a list of 121 clients, including lawyers, businessmen, and socialites. Hopefully they'll publish that list, like on the front page somewhere. The list, which was entered into evidence in the trial under seal, included lawyers, businessmen, socialites throughout the tri-state area. Alleged clients included a Metropolitan Transit Authority executive, an account executive at Amazon, a former New York State Supreme Court judge, and the richest art dealers in New York who connected to the Italian elites. So, they are exposed. Military operations were taking place in the New York tunnels, such as floods and booms that reached from New York to Philadelphia to DC underground tunnels. Q brief. Who's in charge of Washington, D.C.? Who is our president? Why is the White House empty? Why was the White House fenced off? Why is the White House perimeter guarded by the U.S. military? The White House resides in the District of Columbia, the headquarters of the USA Corporation. The White House is a foreign enemy occupying sovereign land within the America. USA Inc. has been defunct for several years, but now you can see it. In 2016, Trump was president of the corporation. In the movie, our reality, it was stolen, but the truth is, he stepped down as president of the corporation. Who's supposedly president today? Actor Biden. Military was and is still in charge until we reach the end game. So we're under military rule right now. And the whole actor Biden business, it's all an act. It's all a show for the mainstream media to fool the public. Sovereignty and freedom. So here's the plan of the New World Order, the next stages of the deep state cabal. Davos Group, World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Gates, Rockefellers, UN to rule the world. In this stage, they created a war with Russia using the Chinese Communist regime that was partially funded by Rothschild Rockefeller banks in China and created a supply chain shortage. In this stage of the planned collapse, they will target the distribution of fertilizer around the world. Russia, the second largest fertilizer producer in the world, will be sanctioned in their ability to export fertilizer. The CCP will also willingly stop exports. These deep state moves will affect the food chains of the US, EU, South America, Africa, and all nations from growing food. For years, Bill Gates has bought out land in the US in order to halt the growing of foods. Thanks, Bill Gates. This stage of the deep state plan will ensure the blame goes to climate change. Engineer-controlled destruction of food grown, engineered weather warfare with patents that controlled weather, melting of the ice cap. Well, once you realize they have control over the weather, they can basically do anything. They can create hurricanes, they can steer them, they can seed clouds to make it rain, they can create these rain bombs, they can change temperatures in different areas. Why in the world would anyone buy into climate change? I mean, it goes directly to the deep state. They're the ones creating the climate change. So anything that comes from this climate change is their fault. There were several reasons to use climate change to bring in the new Green Pass. Green. That the New World Order will connect to your bank account, email, tracking everything you do, including travel, while taxing you every mile. So they're so evil because what they do is they take advantage of people who are all about, not releasing. They don't fully understand climate, the global warming, the climate change issues. And they think driving the big cars and, there's not enough gasoline and, emissions. And they think that, in order to save the planet, give up your freedoms. And they freely do it. Well, the rest of us, the people who know what's happening, we don't want to be forced into that. But that's what the globalists do, is they play into these people that are really uneducated about what's happening. And they play on their fears. And that's what they've been doing.